Welcome back, guys. Alex here with another video. This is something I don't normally do, a video response to my fellow YouTubers, but I want to get it out here because it's such a good question, such a difficult question to ask, because I feel that all my games in my collection are my favourites. It is the top 10 favourite games of all time, and that is such a difficult question to answer because I feel like all my games in here are my favourites. That's why I own them. You know, I've taken a lot of time and research into these games to spend the money on them, to have them in the collection. You know, you don't fork out £2 on a Defender if it's, you know, if it's a crap game. But I have had crap games in my collection and they've come and they've gone. You know, some games have a lot of nostalgia, but don't hold up so well today. Some games are brilliant to play, they're huge, a lot of the modern games I'm referring to now, where it's a great experience for the amount of time you put into it, but then do you ever play it again? Normally that I don't, you know, with these big games. They're great, like a great movie, although you do return to some good movies, and some people do return to these big games, but I like to move on to the next one or the sequel. You know, I like Breath of the Wild, for example. Fantastic game. I must have sunk 600 hours into that game with me and my daughter playing that. It was a fabulous game, but I feel I probably won't return to that. I would say never again, but I'm really looking forward to the sequel. But the games here I've picked are games that I play quite often. And games that I know I'm going to return to again, or I know that I've played more than 10 times. So let's just get straight into it. So let's go back to 1982 on my beloved Sinclair Spectrum 48K, which is what I grew up on. I was, in 1982, I would have been 12. And this was one of the early games on the Sinclair Spectrum. It is Chaos by Julian Gollop. And this was so refreshing. I'd never played a game like it. The first turn-based game I'd ever played, and it was so much fun. You could play up to 8 wizards in this game, so it's kind of like got a Dungeons and Dragons feel to it. So you've got 8 wizards. So if you've got 8 players, which normally we did have, because all my mates would come back to my house and we'd stick this on and battle it out between us all who would be the winner in this game. So there's a bit of luck involved, but there's also a little bit of skill and a little bit of bluffing as well involved, which I like. It's a little bit like a card game, because some of the spells have got not much chance in working. They might have a 10% chance of it working. So some of the players, some of my mates would do like a vampire spell, which would probably be one of the most powerful spells in the game, an undead vampire. And if you did it at the beginning of the game, you knew it was a fake. So you could do a disbelief spell. So you could disbelieve it, and if you did that on the vampire and it turned out to be real, you know you were going to lose the game unless you had some sort of dragon. And the tables could turn halfway through the game. Things could turn around so much. It made it so much fun. So many different monsters in here. All the monsters from Dungeons and Dragons. Great fun. Great memories of all my mates playing this together. Some of my mates are not even here today, you know. So I have a lot of fond memories of playing this game with my mates. Such a fabulous game, and I still fire it up today. But usually just on my own playing against the computer, but I still love it. Brilliant, brilliant game on a Sinclair Spectrum. And Julian Gollop went on to better things. He went on to make UFO, Enemy Unknown for the PS1. I don't think he did UFO on the Xbox One. I think that someone else took it over, but he did a lot. He did Ghost Recon on the DS. He's one of those people that are just, every turn-based game that he creates is just absolutely brilliant. So yeah, so that's the first game, and these are in no particular order, guys. The second game is Zelda Wind Waker. Now the reason why I've chosen this over Breath of the Wild is because I've played it so many times. I must have played it more than 10 times and completed it more than 10 times. I love this game. I love the music. Obviously there's a lot of nostalgia with this game, but there's also a lot of escapism with this game. It just takes you away from all the crap of the day and takes you into a beautiful world, a beautifully hand-drawn world with, you know, sublime music. The music is just absolutely amazing. I love it, especially when you're on your boat and you're on the open ocean. I could just sail around for ages. I love the dungeons in this game. I hope they make a return into the new Breath of the Wild. I just think it's a fabulous game by Nintendo. This is what Nintendo do best. Just an absolute gem of a game, and will always be one of my favourite games of all time. That's Zelda Wind Waker. Right, so my next game is not a console game. My next game is Defender, my beloved Defender, which, you know, you all remember back in the day as being a hard game. Everyone says it's a hard game. And I was determined to fix this by owning this game and getting better at it. I'd seen people playing it at the arcade club, seen how good they were, and I just thought I'd love to be like that. It's just one of those games that's really cool to watch the best players play it, because it just looks so cool. It is such a cool game. It's got that perfect risk-reward element to the game where, you know, you're trying to save the humanoids at the same time, taking out the mutants and the landers and the betas that come at you. Do you press the hyperspace button, you know, in risking your spaceship in the meantime? It's just an amazing game, and since I've owned it, it's only been in my collection for over a year now, it's become one of my favourite games of all time. I just absolutely love it. And you don't have to be a million-point player to enjoy Defender. Even if you're just getting 50,000 to 100,000 points in Defender, it's a good game. It's an enjoyable game. Yes, it's hard, but it's still good. It's just so good. The sound effects that Williams are known for just make that game as well. You know, it's so gratifying to shoot the aliens with your laser ship. It's just so cool. I love the cabinet, I love the side art, I love the button layout. Just a brilliant game. So yeah, that's another one of my top 10 games. Next up we have, of course, ain't going anywhere without a Super Nintendo game. It's Pokmon Rocky. Now, I discovered this about 7 years ago, and I absolutely love this game. Again, the atmosphere in this game, the music just takes me to Japan, really. It takes me to Japan, to their world and how they imagine their fantasy worlds. You know, completely different than ours, than the knights and the fantasy, you know, the cliche stuff that we see over and over again with Merlin and all that. You know, it's just a completely different take on the fantasy world. And it's a lovely multi-directional shooter with cutie graphics, but excellent gameplay. You know, you've got some nice effects in here, roll effects. You've got kind of like spells you can do as well. You can have an extra player, so you can play 2 players in it. It's just a brilliant game. It's not an easy game, but I don't like easy games. I do like a challenge. Yeah, it's just a brilliant game. Pokmon Rocky 2 as well, I could have picked, but I'm still waiting for that one. I still haven't got that back in my collection, but hopefully I'll have that soon. That is a better take on this game, and it takes it a little bit further. It's got shop, spells and all that you can buy and upgrades. But this one is more kind of like an arcade type game. It could have been an arcade, well, it was an arcade game. Kiki Kai Kai was released into the arcades, and I have played the original arcade game, but for me it is all about the Super Nintendo version. It is far the best version. So if you haven't played this, guys, Pokmon Rocky, absolutely brilliant. Next up is a game that I played last year and absolutely loved, and I just couldn't believe when Nintendo said they were going to release this. Of course, we're all waiting for Metroid 4, but they released this, Metroid Dread, and oh my god, I was gushing over this game. This game was just so good. It was so good. It was so good. I was determined to 100% it, and I did. went into every nook and cranny in the game and 100%ed it and loved it, and I had got such a great feeling for 100% in it. I just felt good. I felt powerful, you know. I love the character Samus. I think that there should be more female characters in video games, you know, off their own back, you know, not taking some male's role and putting a female character in there, but creating a female franchise like Tomb Raider, like Samus from Metroid, and Bayonetta is another great example. But yeah, brilliant game. And I think I do prefer the 2D Metroid games. They just, I guess that's probably my age. I love, you know, Metroid on the Super Nintendo was my favourite Metroid, but this does beat it, hands down, I'm afraid. It is a fabulous game. The atmosphere in it, it's almost like a horror game, you know, where you're constantly being chased by this robot. And the ender level bosses are just out of this world. I kept sending videos to my mates and my son, Josh, check out this ender level boss. Just crazy, just brilliant design. You know, where they get the imagination for all these kind of monsters, I don't know. But what a fabulous job that would be to work in game development, designing bosses for people to take down. What a job, you know. What you've been doing today, darling, I've been designing this end of level boss for Metroid. Wow, that'd be a cool job, wouldn't it? But yeah, what a fantastic game. Next up, another Super Nintendo game, and it is Concha 3 Alien Wars, or Protectors, or Protector in PAL region. I love the box art for this, and this is just, I love run and gun games. Like, I love Metroid, I love run and gun games. They're just brilliant. Again, what does make this game so good? It's doable. You can finish it. The levels are varied. The end of level bosses are imaginative. There's just so much going on. You know, one minute you're hanging off a helicopter, next minute you're climbing around the walls trying to destroy this alien that's smashing through the walls. Then it's top down, mode 7. It just changes it around constantly. You never get bored. The music's in your face. All the weapons are awesome. It's 2-player. What else can you want? It's just a fabulous Super Nintendo game, you know. It's what's put the Super Nintendo at the top for me. Brilliant game, and I had this back in the day, absolutely loved it. Next up is another arcade game, and it has to be Donkey Kong, doesn't it? Donkey Kong, what a fantastic game. I love all the Donkey Kongs, to be fair. I love Donkey Kong 3, I love Junior. But Donkey Kong, it's just something about it. I guess it's got a little bit more sort of chaos going on in it. You know, you never know what's going to happen, where the barrels are going to go. And it is another one of those games, it is quite fun to watch other people play and get tips from. Because there is a lot going on in it. You can control the barrels in Donkey Kong. You know, after about level 4, you can control where the barrels go down the platforms and down the ladders. So there is a lot of skill in Donkey Kong, a hell of a lot of skill, and it's fascinating watching the best players in the world, Donkey Kong. I love the cabinet. I remember playing Donkey Kong at Crystal Palace in the early 80s when they had those really old Victorian dinosaurs. I don't know if you remember, if you've ever been to Crystal Palace, it was one of those sort of open dinosaur museums. A little bit like Natural History, but it was outside. And they had all these kind of plastic huge dinosaurs that looked nothing like dinosaurs. You know, it's the old Victorian way of putting together a dinosaur. All the arms are in the wrong place. But I always remember it as a kid, and my brother used to do a lot of cycling there, and we used to go there and watch him cycle, but I got really bored of watching him go round and round. So I'd be in the canteen where they had this little cocktail Donkey Kong machine, and I'll never forget it. I absolutely loved it, fell in love with it. Brilliant game, and so happy and proud to have it in the collection. So yeah, that is another game. Next up is another Super Nintendo game. This one I did for a high school challenge a few years ago, and everyone that joined in absolutely loved it and became their favourite as well. It is Axley. I still think this is one of the best shooters I've ever played. Again, the music, I keep going on about the music, but the music on the Super Nintendo is just the best. It really gets you going, and it changes throughout the levels as well. When the boss comes in, the music changes. It just gets your heart rate going, and it's just, you know, it's just a joy to play. It's just so awesome. I love the underwater level where you get that weird underwater creature at the end of level boss. All the bosses are cool in it. You know, the fire boss with the mode 7 throwing fireballs at you is so cool. It's doable, it's finishable. You know, if you put the time into it, you can finish it on easy, of course. But it is such a great game. I'm not a huge shooter fan, but this is one of my favourites. I love it. You know, I'm not a big bullet hell fan at all. I love the old school kind of R-type, Axlay type of games. And this is just fabulous. Brilliant game. Absolutely brilliant. So how many is that now? I've lost count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh. I'm going to choose a Sega game, which I have in my collection. It is Sega's Super Hang-On, which is in bits right now because I'm having all the fairing resprayed. So I must think a lot of it to put the time and the money into restoring it. I remember it back in the day, but I remember the bike you used to sit on, and it was awful to play. You know, you could never get round the corners properly. Just didn't handle very well. But since I've owned the upright version, which is the only way to play Super Hang-On, you can't sit on that bike. It's become a favourite. I love the music. It's one of those games you're constantly going back to try and improve your top score. You get to memorise the tracks, you get better every single time, and of course you've got so many tracks in Super Hang-On. It's got so much replay value that I just find myself going back to it time and time again. I guess for me, that is most people's Outrun. Most people like Outrun. I like Sega Hang-On. I would probably like Outrun as well, and I do remember playing Outrun a lot, but I'm into bikes. I used to like riding motorbikes, so for me I had to get a bike game. For me, that is the best racing motorbike game that Sega have ever been produced. I think it's brilliant. I think most people would agree. It's awesome. And the fact now that I can play Hang-On and Super Hang-On in that cabinet together just makes it a game that I'll never get rid of. It's just brilliant. I have so much fun on it. It's constantly getting played. So that is another one of my favourite games of all time. Now the next one's a difficult one. Robotron. I was going to choose, and it still is one of my favourite games of all time. But I do struggle with it now with my arm. Since I broke my arm, probably nearly 2 years now, it still hasn't healed very well, and I do struggle to play it, which is really unfortunate and a bit sad really, because I don't play it as much as I used to, but I know it's still one of my favourite games of all time. It is, I have to include it. It is a brilliant game. Light Defender, Eugene Jarvis got everything right. It's got that perfect risk-reward element where you get greedy. It's human nature to be greedy and just grab as many humanoids as you can. But normally that's when you die, because you're better off really staying back and shooting some of the enemies first and then getting the humanoids. But when you watch people play it, they just try and grab as much as they can. They end up dying. That's the mistake a lot of people make. You've got to let some of them die. You can't save the world, You can't save the world. You have to sacrifice a few humans to live on in life. So yeah, it's a great game. Again, the sound effects in Robotron are out there. That is probably a lot of the attraction of the game, the sound effects. My partner, she absolutely loves it for the sound effects. It's the one game she loves playing down here. So I'll never get rid of it. I will go back to it. As soon as my arm gets better, I will go back to it. And I should try and not yank the sticks as much as I used to. I used to actually pull the machine over. People used to know me for pulling the bloody machine over. They've seen me rock the machine. I used to tug it so hard. But now I've sort of learnt to twitch the joysticks more gently because of my arm. But yeah, I love it. Robotron, what a game. Fantastic game. So there you are, guys. That is it. I think that is my top 10, isn't it? Yes, it is. 10 fabulous games, but guys, honestly, there are so many other great games in my collection that I could quite easily take one of those out and put another one in. You know, it's such a difficult question. Anyway, if anyone else wants to do a video on this, please do, because I would love to watch, and let me know in the comments below when you have, because I'd love to watch what your top 10 favourite games are. I've got to say thank you to Claygraphics and Stuart from Tooty UK YouTube channels. I'll put a link in the video below. Go and check their top 10s out, because if it wasn't for you guys uploading those videos, I wouldn't have done this. You inspired me to put a video up. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your top 10 favourite games are in the comments below. I would absolutely love to know. Cheers guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.